All right, so this past patch where they buffed some armors, did a few other small tweaks, changed Leviathans and stuff like that. We're basically going to be reviewing this patch. I have tested all the changes to give you guys my thoughts. And as you guys know, I also look for hidden changes and test a number of things. I found some bugs that I'm going to let you know how to play around. And I also found a stealth buff in this patch this time. So first up, some of the bugs I found, just so you're aware of them. I think most people know this by now, but recoilless, autocannon, and air burst launcher are all showing guided or non-guided as their firing modes now. However, this is just a visual bug and the mode themselves work fine. So I'm just going to tell you which mode is which. So all the original rounds, so the recoilless armor piercing rounds, the autocannon armor piercing rounds, and the air burst flak, those are all the original rounds. When the weapon spawns in, it's set to that firing mode, and it is the firing mode to your right. Now, the alternate firing modes, the HE for the recoilless, the flak autocannon, and the cluster rounds for the air burst launcher are all set to the left. So that's how you can play around that. Hopefully it gets fixed, but it's just a visual bug. All right, so the next bug I found was a bit of an annoying one, and with every melee weapon I've played with, maybe it doesn't apply to them all, but at least the stun baton and the stun lance, if you stim or like pick up a sample container while you're using these weapons, it puts them like sideways into your hand, and they basically become unusable until you switch weapons. Now, the quickest way to work around this is to hit your stratagem button menu, but honestly, this ruins the flow of combat so hard. I don't even recommend playing with melee weapons until they fix this bug. I mean, hey, if you're a melee lover and you insist upon doing it anyway, go for it by all means. But they definitely need to fix this one. It is a tough one to play around. All right, and the final bug I want to mention is a laser dog backpack now cooling down for an extremely long time. When last patch, it wasn't going on cooldown at all. Now, I was able to confirm that this is not a stealth nerf, so don't worry, guys. I talked to an Arrowhead developer, and this is just unintended. Hopefully they will try to get a fix out for this one by next patch. So again, don't worry, laser dog lovers, it wasn't a stealth nerfed, and hopefully it gets fixed soon. Okay, so those are all the game sort of altering bugs I've found. There are a few other small but inconsequential ones, like the Quasar cannon not really having a lot of audio this patch. But I just wanted to fill you guys in on the ones that affect your gameplay. Now, before we get into the meat of the video, which is the patch review and the hidden stealth buff I found, let's talk about today's sponsor, Instant Gaming, an awesome video game website where you can save anywhere up to 20%, 40% on newer releases like the amazing Expedition 33 yet. If you didn't play this game yet, you can get it cheaper on this website using my link. But they've also got old but gold goodies like the Helldivers Digital Deluxe Edition. And make sure you're getting the Deluxe Edition, which has all the DLC. You can get it for $5 right now on Instant Gaming, which, let's be real, that's a steal. Or even another random game like No Man's Sky, which right now is $20 on Instant Gaming, but in the Steam store, it's apparently still $60. So whatever game you are looking to buy, use my link for Instant Gaming. You could definitely save a couple bucks on this website. It never hurts to check it out. Just make sure you're using my link. Okay, so a quick hidden thing that wasn't in the major order message or the patch notes is that you probably know by now there are bug megacities. That part's obvious. The same map style seen on Super Earth. But what you may not have realized is they added a super city to other planets other than what the major order was saying. There is actually a bug megacity on Veld, and there was a bug megacity on this planet right to the major order. Sorry, I'm recording the video. I'll play the clip in the background. I forget which planet it was. But there are other planets, basically not within the major order, that do have the megacities. Now, this was relevant on the first day of the patch because the Predator strain was on Veld. They actually weren't on the major order planet. And I wanted to go fight Predator strain in the megacity. It was super cool. But also, you know, if we win this major order, if we win these two megacity planets, just know that there are going to be more megacities you can play. And also, I just wanted to mention how cool it was that these city biome planets now have one city mission modifier you can pick, but also 3 non-cities on the same planet. So it's like 4 total mission operations that you can pick from. And I just think that's a really nice change because I like having more choices. All right, so let's quickly talk about the 2 weapon buffs this patch. There was an ergonomic buffs to the amendment, as well as a bit of damage and magazine buffs to the Peacemaker. Now, I'm just gonna cover these both quickly. Now, the Peacemaker buffs were actually quite nice, but in general, for me personally, I don't really use either of these guns. The amendment I like on bots sometimes, but in general, if you already liked these guns, you'll be happy. And like, I don't think either of these buffs really changed how often I will bring either of these guns. Like, the Peacemaker buffs are actually quite nice. They gave it like a decent amount of damage. They give it kind of real durable damage, and they give you extra ammo. But with that being said, like, there's just still other sidearms I would rather take personally. The Senator, like, just being a heavy pen, the Ultimatum, the Crisper, the Dagger. They're like, you know what I mean? I just am not a Peacemaker lover. So they were quite nice buffs for the Peacemaker. The Amendment just got an Ergo buff, which, like, Ergo doesn't even bother me. All right, so we're just gonna move on to an amazing change. Oh my God. Helldivers can now stim while diving. This is single-handedly the best buff to Helldivers that I never knew I needed. It's been about 2 days since the patch, so I think most of you who have tried this change will agree now. But basically, all those times where you're surrounded and you're trying to jab a stim into your neck, but you keep getting staggered out of it, well, like, in those situations, you can just stim and dive, and most of the time it works. I think I've actually died before the stim got to kick in. And that's the only time it didn't work for me, but like every other time I've gotten the stim off. And, you know, you're not stuck just like kind of mashing your stim button praying. You can just hit your dive button at any given moment and stim at the same time. In general, it's just made the game like feel more responsive because, oh, and I'll say it took me a little bit to get used to this, like, because I would dive and then stim. It's just like a little muscle memory thing, but I'm used to this now. And it was an S plus tier change. Like, my God, it, like, you know, clicking your stim button 50 times and it not working versus dive and stim and it works. It just makes the game feel better to play. It makes it feel more responsive. And I never even knew Arrowhead were going to do this kind of change. Now, we can only hope for diving while reloading. That would be insane because, hey, I also click my reload button like 50 times in a row and it keeps getting interrupted, or I dive and it interrupts it and then I got to click it again. And yeah, anyways, though. All right, next let's talk about the armor passive changes to integrated explosives and unflinching. I will just quickly talk about integrated explosives. Basically, this is the armor where you blow up when you die, and they added the ability to get +2 grenades when using this armor. Now, this is a buff, and it's good that they're looking at some of the worst armors, but when I was playing with this armor, like, there were just moments where I got shot, and I was next to my teammate, and now I also killed my teammate. But there were other moments where, like, I got ran down by predator stalkers and they killed me. But then when I died, I got like a nice 5 kill streak. In general, I just think the explosion on death is like really gimmicky. It could lead to team killing. When it does work, you get like 5 or 6 kills with it. And like, if you're really lucky, you get run over by a charger and die, and then it can blow up a charger and kill it. But it's just super gimmicky. So like, it's nice that they buffed it by giving you extra grenades. But like, in general, like, if you like this armor, then I'm happy for you. But this ain't gonna be one of the ones that's like, I'm gonna use very often. However, what I do wanna talk about is the unflinching armor set, and in particular, the medium unflinching armor set. This armor set was buffed to receive half padding. Great idea, by the way. And also ping enemies on the minimap. Now, the ping enemies on the minimap is a nice little bonus, but what we're gonna be focusing on is the half padding. Now, there is another thing as well. This armor set caught a stealth buff. So I posted a video talking about the armor problem, and I talked about how unflinching was only 95% unflinching, and it wasn't actually 100% unflinching. They actually stealth buffed it this patch. It is now 100% unflinching, at least while you are aiming. So I'll just like play a clip in a background of like me using the scythe against a bunch of small bots, and you can like pretty much just see I wasn't flinching. So this armor set did catch a stealth buff, but also the listed buff, which is half padding, is actually a significant buff to the medium version set of this armor. And let's talk about why. So if I pull up the armor health stats, you can see all the armor sets from 50, 60, 70, up to 100, all take 150% headshot damage. And this is one of the reasons that just flat out medium armor feels bad. However, this is one of the reasons that the 129 armor set is really, really good. This is one of the reasons why the 150 armor set is really, really good. And now this is one of the reasons that the medium unflinching armor set is pretty solid. Now, I did the most important breakpoint testing, which is the Warrior 2-shot. And no, Warriors do not 2-shot you in this armor set. I guess I should mention we did have the Vitality booster, but if you're playing squads, normally you end up taking that booster. And if you're playing solo bugs, you're either a heavy boy like me, or you just wear light armor, so you're gonna get 2-shot anyway. Okay, so that's the warrior breakpoint test, but what about on bots? Now, I can say from playing multiple bot matches with this armor set that the tankiness is there. I absolutely am living more often at low HP and getting the stim off compared to when I wear medium armor on bots. Every time I use 100 armor rating on bots, I regret my life choices and instantly go back to 129 or heavy armor or medium padded. But with that being said, I will be wearing this unflinching armor set now, medium 125. Now, another thing we really should be talking about is like, is the 100% unflinching good? Or are you flinching less? And there is a mechanic in the game that you guys know about called stagger, which does affect our Helldivers. So both actions can make you miss a shot. What I will say is that flinch is like when you get flinched and you kind of like jerk your gun upwards, whereas stagger just kind of moves your Helldiver around. And stagger, I would compare more so to sway, or like if you're running and gunning, versus unflinching, which is like a crazy, like, it's like when you land on the hover pack and jerk your gun up, right? Now, this is just a hard thing to rate and just tell you guys, it's hard to say if I should have flinched when I didn't flinch, right? Like, oh, that's the moment I didn't flinch, but I should have. Like, that's hard to catch, right? But what I will say is, like, I definitely noticed my aim not jerking upwards when I was getting shot, and I kind of can tell the difference a little bit. Now, this is something I'll update you guys on more as I play it more. I may change my mind later. But personally, as of right now, I do like the 125 armor set, and I will be bringing unflinching versus bots more often. So I do think this was very, very good buffs, and it did catch that stealth buff to 100% unflinching. A quick other thing I'll say is I do think this is more of a bots or an illuminate armor set. I don't really think this is a bug armor. You might as well just use medium padded on bugs. However, if you're using like a quasar cannon, for example, and you don't want to get flinched when you're shooting a Bile Titan, you can probably use it on bugs. It would be useful for that. All right, so now let's talk about this weird change. It was a stealth detection update. Enemies will no longer automatically detect you when you're near a Terminid spawner or spawners that generate flying enemies. Instead, these spawners will now only activate if an enemy has already identified you as a target. And then it mentions how stalker layers get sent your way as soon as you're within 200 meters. And it mentions it smoothed out the spawns in the automaton bases. Okay, so when I first read this change and, didn't test it yet, I was a bit skeptical. Like, I was concerned because, I like fighting against stalkers. I like when I see, like, I hear the stalker and a creepy invisible bug is running after me and I can kill it. And I was worried that this change would kind of nerf stalkers throughout the game. However, after testing this change, it may be the case solo that if you're playing stealthily, you can sneak up on a stalker lair and you can take it out. But I actually did test if I was 150 meters roughly away from a stalker lair. I fought some enemies, like they detected me, we were in a fight, and then I found the stalker lair 150 meters away, and it was spawning stalkers. So they kind of just made it so that you have to get into a fight 150 meters away from a stalker lair rather than just kind of walking over the line and now all of a sudden stalkers are spawning. Now, the other thing about this change is it does seem like it did smooth out the spawns in bases a bit better. So like the bot colony missions with the like fortified bunkers, the tankier bunkers, oftentimes I would walk in there and there would just be like nothing in there. But I can say I played a few colony bot missions and they were swarming with tanks. They were swarming with enemies. So, and like I can immediately tell you this was not the case last patch at all. Maybe like some games they would spawn regularly, but in the majority of games last patch, there was like nothing in these heavy bot colony bases. So this change does make stealth better, where if you're not engaging enemies, you can do objectives easier. But it also, just like I said, it smoothed out some of the spawns. Now, again, this is a bit of a weird change, so it might take more games to play. I might change my mind on it. But from the initial testing I did, I liked what I found. You could still spawn the stalkers if you're not playing stealth, because you're just kind of fighting something, 100 meters away, and then it'll spawn the stalkers in like mid-fight. And that's actually a really cool change in my opinion, because sometimes it wasn't exciting if like just a random stalker runs up to you, you see it coming, you're not fighting anything else, and you just kill it. It's more exciting when they show up mid-fight, and it's a bit scarier. So for now, I am rating this as a solid change in my opinion, because these spawns also feel way better in the bot colony outposts as well, and I want more enemies to kill. All right, so moving on, let's talk about the Leviathan changes. So first up, the planetary defense cannon now causes an appropriate amount of damage to Leviathans. We don't have the cannon missions right now, so I have no idea what this change does. I believe it took 4 or 5 shots to down a Leviathan before, and if it could just 2-shot them now, honestly, I'd be happy with that. I know some people want the 1-shot out of the cannon, and I'm not opposed to that. That would be cool too. But like, if it at least 2-shot them, I would be happy. But there is a Leviathan in the room right now. They lowered the damage of the Leviathan snipers, so cars and exosuits can live more than 1 shot, but it is still 1-shotting Helldivers, and now the splash radius is even larger, so it's just also ragdolling Helldivers more often. Now, I have seen a lot of people raging over this change. I know you guys are expecting me to like crash out and start raging right now, but ultimately, the 2 games I played with the Leviathans, it just felt the same. Yeah, one of those games I got juggled by like 3 snipes in a row, and I couldn't control my character for like 10 seconds, but like, it just, I don't know, I didn't crash out over it, okay? It just felt the same. Like, when I get sniped by a Leviathan, it feels bad. When I get ragdoll juggled by a Leviathan, it feels bad. And here's the thing, like, I realized immediately that Leviathans suck on open maps, but they are also a map modifier, okay? So I just picked the missions without Leviathans. So this change didn't fix them, and it's also not gonna change my Illuminate gameplay, because I'm still gonna pick the missions without Leviathans. So ultimately, I just think this was not the fix for them. They just gotta revisit Leviathans again. And what I personally think they should do to Leviathans is make them more like a mini super destroyer. You know how the Stingrays are like an eagle strafing run? Well, imagine if the Leviathan just like floated over an area, put down some lights, like it's about to like attack, like an Illuminate stratagem ball got called in, and then it drops like a squid Gatling barrage over that area. And like, I think it needs to telegraph this stuff so that way, like, there's just more interaction, right? Like, it's just that the cringe turrets on it just don't feel very interactive. Like, you just get sniped from 200 meters away and you're just like, what the hell? Or maybe they could do this other meme and give them the harvester beams that you can actually dodge out of the way of, and also allow us to shoot their guns off, because currently they just take 0 damage even from a recoilless rifle, which is just weird in my opinion. So if they just rework them to make them more interactable, then they will just inherently become more fun for that reason. Anything non-interactive just ends up not being fun, and anything with more interaction or telegraphing is more fun to play. It's just that simple. All right, so next up is harvesters, and they didn't list any stats for us, but luckily for you guys, I do have the stats for you. It says their health was rebalanced to make them easier to destroy using anti-tank weapons, particularly when aiming at their head, and that is kind of just their whole body where the legs connect into, but I guess that's just their head. So basically what changed here? Well, here is the spreadsheet with the health pools before and after the changes. Now, I only flash those on the screen for a second for the nerds who want to pause the video at that point and look at it for yourself. But what actually changed? So I'll give you guys the cliff notes. And again, shout out to John Spreadsheet who shared this information with me. So the hip joints are now a bit tankier. They went from 50% durable to 70% durable. So any sort of non-durable medium pen weapons actually did catch a nerf here. They were punished. But the shell pieces around the sides and like the eye weak point, I don't know if I was shooting my EAT directly into the eye, but I just shot it in the direction of the eye and it one-shot it. And all the internals of the harvester now deal 100% damage to main, which before I think they weren't dealing much at all. So basically you can shoot a Leviathan with a recoilless almost anywhere in the body to kill it. I will say one place I didn't try is like the outer leg armor, but you can shoot it in the hip joints and you can shoot it anywhere in the body, and a recoilless should one-shot it. And again, the EAT I showed you guys in the clip, it was one-shotting it in the eye. Now, another notable thing here is the HMG can absolutely just shred harvesters to the body now, because it's dealing 100% to main, and the HMG has AP4, which means it can shoot the body, and the HMG also has high damage per second. So that is pretty cool. Now, the only one thing that's a bit weird is they made the joints tankier. So any medium pen primary weapon is going to have a harder time killing these now, at least the non-durable ones. I think the Eruptor was mostly unchanged against it, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, this is just kind of a weird change to me, and they didn't say they were making the hip joints tankier, but I don't know, I'm just reporting the news. All right, so the last change worth talking about is the Factory Strider foot shot. Now they raised the Factory Strider foot health from an effective 3k health to basically 3.5k health. And this is just enough health that a recoilless doesn't one-shot them from there now. Now, recoilless rifle does like 3,200 damage if I recall correctly. So it basically leaves their foot at like 300 HP. So like, just so you guys know, for example, you could shoot it with a recoilless, and now your teammate with an autocannon could easily finish the foot off from there. Or you could just take your recoilless and go for the eye shot, or take your recoilless and go for the underbelly shot. There are other options to still one-shot the Factory Strider. Now, personally, I remember when Factory Striders first came out and the recoilless couldn't one-shot them. And like, personally, I wouldn't even mind if it was a two-shot, because the Factory Strider was my favorite enemy in the game when they first came out, and the recoilless wasn't one-shotting them at that time either. Personally, I do feel that they are fine being a bit more tanky. Factory Striders can be quite rare unless you run into the blockade. Sometimes you do get those like triple Factory Strider bot call-ins, which is kind of crazy, but they are a bit more of a boss enemy in the game, you know, let's be real. Like, they're tankier than Bile Titans. They're only a step under Leviathans. Other than that, they're the tankiest enemy in the game. So like, I don't mind that it's a two-shot in more places than its eye and its belly. Like, they just removed a foot weak point. So maybe some people will be upset at this change. Personally, I'm just not. I'm okay with that. Like, I'd be okay if they made the eye two shots and then you can only go for the belly. With that being said, though, I'm not saying to do that. I just am okay with this change. So those are all my thoughts on the last patch. Let me know if you thought this video was informative enough. And if it wasn't informative enough, please comment down below and what you would like me to go more in depth on. Be sure to like the video. See you guys next time. I'm out.